I found this huge gap in the personal development industry where there was this massive gap between what people wanted and understanding where they wanted to go, but then actually being able to get there. So look to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go from where you're at to where you want to be?
Carrie Campbell is a bold, passionate, and purpose-driven performance coach behind the Carrie Campbell experience. Home to her signature, her Dentity Code, a program helping women break free from limiting narratives and step into their true power.
People lack vision. They have goals that aren't their own. Like, they want to be $1 million company because someone else is $1 million. What is your vision? What matters to you? What lights your soul on fire? So I do a lot of work with my clients and the women that I work with on vision. If you've got no vision, you have no direction.
I would imagine most people listening have a good mindset to be just listening to this podcast right now.
Right.
How do they take it from good to elite?
So that's a big question.
It spans the globe like a super highest called internet.
Elvis Presley. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
It's not over until I win.
The Living Your Legacy podcast for those who live to leave a legacy.
That's extraordinary. The impossible has happened. Oh, that is sensational. Jordan, open. Chicago with the lead. Usain Bolt is the fastest man on the planet. You can live your dream.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Legacy Makers. Here with Carrie today, who's a pro bodybuilder, elite performance coach. We're going to dive into how to be the best version of yourself and a whole bunch more. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, excited for this conversation. You know, I grew up in pro sport and then I was a sports scientist, and the lab I worked in was called Human Performance Lab. So very fitting to what you do too. Yeah. So let's talk about it. What is, if people are asking, what is an elite performance coach?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I recently, actually, in the last several years, have redefined what it is I do based on the coaching industry and where the coaching world is going. So I'm actually a clinical counselor and a mindset expert.
Yep.
But over the years and the years of my practice, 25 years in the industry, really and truly, my focus now is with high-level corporate executives, professional athletes, so on and so forth. So really, it's like achieving that level of elite human status where you're able to, hit all of your goals with great success and great focus and determination and just navigate life as it's all happening around you. So essentially, I coach people on that high level human performance.
Great. And just to address the question, is that just around health and fitness, or is that around all aspects
It's
of life?
actually, it's so funny because people always make the assumption it is health and fitness because I'm a professional bodybuilder as well. But no, it's primarily around mindset. So I'm the co-founder of a program called the Elite Eliminate Your Limits Mindset System. And really and truly, it's all about unconscious unprogramming and reprogramming in order to master your mind. So that's really the foundation of everything I do. But then I think that whenever you're involved with somebody at the level that I'm involved with them in their lives, it really expands to everything, whether it's health and fitness. I do have a certification as a personal trainer as well. But so it goes into personal training, it goes into health, it goes into fitness, it touches all aspects of life, but really coming back to the unconscious mind and mindset mastery.
I know a lot of people, are they hiring you and they're doing virtual Zooms, or how do you work with people?
Yeah. So if I'm working with somebody on a private level, because I have two different aspects of my company, but if I'm working privately with someone, basically, I'm hired on a year-long contract and I customize it depending on what the person's looking for. So usually I meet with all of my clients in person once a quarter. And during that quarter, we do vision planning, we do strategy, we kind of get in and do the deep download on what's going on and then strategize moving forward for that quarter. Where are we going and what are we doing? And then we maintain through communication online, right? And in between. So my higher level private clients, I do travel for a great deal. And then there's a whole aspect of my other side of my business, which is all about my women's empowerment movement. And that has everything from live events, live retreats, and we do have an online membership as well.
Great. And let's just, before we get too far into the mindset side, what you do, if someone's listening, what's your background? How did you, I know you'll talk about it in your main episode, but give us the 30-second summary. How'd you get into all this?
Yeah, so I graduated with a diploma in counseling. I'm a clinical counselor. I have been for 27 years now. I started initially working with kids with special needs, and then as I kind of aged myself, I grew out of that and got really interested in finding I found this huge gap in the personal development industry where there was this massive gap between what people wanted and understanding where they wanted to go, but then actually being able to get there. So look to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go from where you're at to where you want to be?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of graduated through into that process and have a love affair with mindset and human behavior.
Yeah. No, me too. I think it's one of my big passions, and it took me about 10 years to realize that even though I wasn't a mindset coach or certified, I had a great mindset, and it was just something that came natural to me, you know, and why it was really one of the main reasons I was so successful. And I also, during that period of time, you know, coaching hundreds of people on marketing and business, realized how most people have a bad mindset. And it's like, even when you give them all the marketing business advice, you know, half of my day job was actually mindset coaching in disguise,
Completely,
right?
yeah.
So I want to ask you that. Why do so many people, why is your job important? Why do so many people have a mindset that needs coaching and work like a human body?
That's a great big question to answer. So let me narrow it down. I think that the greatest way to narrow that down, I mean, our thoughts are everything, right? I mean, science dictates that our thoughts lead our actions. It's the baseline there, and I won't go into detail on that. I think that the broader point, and this is a lot of what I work around, is like understanding how our influences in our environment and the world around us have shaped the unconscious narratives that create our thoughts. So our influence leads to our belief system leads to our expectations, and then therefore our behaviors. So understanding that, you know, the influence in the world that we've been raised in, and it could be good or bad, you know, whether you're raised, you know, you have a family who has an alcoholic parent, or even the country that we live in shapes our belief systems. And so unless or until you are able to actually dissect your belief systems, question them. And I always say, like, is it helping you or hindering you? Is it moving you forward or is it moving you back? And understand how movable those belief systems are, then you'll never get to where you're going. So we all have a mind, we all have an unconscious mind, and it's running 24/7. So be able to harness that, I think, is I personally believe mindset matters most above everything else.
Well, yeah, I think you answered that big question well, because and a good way I relate this is, like, you know, we're both in fitness, but if you grow up in a family where they eat chips every night and binge bad food, there's a high likelihood you're gonna have obesity when you're older, right?
Exactly.
And people may kind of go, yeah, that's obvious, but they don't understand that side of the mindset, right? And even I didn't. Like, my parents were pro athletes, so now I realized, looking back, that my mindset's so good because I grew up with pro athletes, right? And then the environment, you know, I think because my mindset was so great growing up, I realized that the environment of the UK didn't serve my big goals, so I was brave enough and strong enough to leave in my early 20s, which most people would never do.
Right.
And so I guess I'm like a perfect example of when everything goes right.
Yeah.
And sadly, 90% of the population, I think it goes wrong in their childhood, and that's why they need you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Very true. And you know, I mean, it's true. Yes. You know, unfortunately, most people don't have a great upbringing. It's just the reality. I like you, came from, you know, it's interesting. I came from a family, a very loving, very supportive family. My mom was an alcoholic, and, you know, she doesn't mind me talking about that publicly. So I did have those influences. However, I do believe that there are certain people who just have certain X factors in their mindset that they tend to go to a more serving direction. That's always been me, but that's not the majority of the world, right? And we have to understand that, you know, our brain, we were talking neurology now, our brain imprints negative way more than it imprints positive. So those traumatic experiences, those negative experiences are going to shape you far more than anything.
Well, I think it's just like the brain craves sugar and bad food more than it, sadly, it craves celery and chicken breast.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So it's, you know, for me, it's really about, like, I love the process of, like, taking a human being and dissecting it and putting the puzzle pieces back together and finding what puzzle piece works for what person. As a coach, I really thrive on that entire creative process. and helping people find, what they're capable
Yeah.
of, and be able to move through that.
So if people are listening and they're working on their mindset, I would imagine most people listening have a good mindset to be just listening to this podcast right now.
Right.
How do they take it from good to elite?
Okay, so that's a big question. So I think, and I'm going to go broad on foundational pieces because of the purpose of the timeline. So the first thing I would say is that every single human being has to have a mindset process. And I'm not talking a mindset process that's like a 5-minute a day, scribble in a journal. I'm talking about a very well-rounded, very intentional mindset process that can actually support you mindfully and intentionally creating your days. Yeah. And so everybody needs to have that process. And then from that point, the more you can make that consistent and just practice that over and over and over again, the better you're going to be.
Let's do what's an example of that?
Yeah, I can give you that. So I have 4 pillars that I use in my process, and they're designed to deconstruct and reconstruct narratives. So the first pillar is learning your language, which is essentially identifying the non-serving language in your thoughts and your feelings. The second pillar is counting your wins, which is pretty self-explanatory. The third is reviewing your direction, which is really all about where am I going? What do I want to achieve? And then the final is imagining your outcome. So harnessing the power of your imagination. So if I were to say to everybody listening right now, all of that, start every single day with intentionality. Every single day, ask yourself, what matters most today in order to achieve my goals and my vision? And at the end of the day, count your wins and ask yourself, how did I win today?
Yep.
It's a small exercise, but people don't understand the power of it. The brain is complex and our unconscious minds are chaotic and messy. So we need to demystify and simplify the process as much as we can, because otherwise we'll talk ourselves out of it.
I like it. I want to ask you a follow-up question on 2 parts. Number 1, I really love the first part, and I have a friend that's a big sort of brand business expert like me, but has done so much mindset work like I have, and she just shot a documentary on it, and one of the interviews in the documentary was a great saying about a healthy, successful mind is you go through life being your best friend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said, give me the first one again. It's the
review your direction.
Yeah. But also, I think one of them was, maybe it wasn't the first one. It's how what you say to yourself.
Oh, learning your language, how we're talking to ourselves.
How we're talking to ourselves.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
there we go. Let's talk about that, because I don't think people understand the power. And I've noticed this so much with people close to me. Like, my brain is like, I am my best friend. Like, I'm like almost overly arrogant 100% of the time. But that's why
I get it. I'm with you right there.
Yeah, but that's why I have such a great
100%.
mindset, and I can dive into like a brand new business and make millions because I have no it's like I can jump off a cliff and think I fly, right? Which is great 90% of the time. But 99% of the population are the opposite. So if they are battling right now on the opposite side, how do they get out of that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I can't claim credit to this actual statement. It was one of my clients who used this language, but this is the most powerful sentence I've ever heard. Talk to yourself more than you listen to yourself.
That's good.
Because your unconscious mind, and this is the problem, we're not aware of what's going on in our unconscious mind until we bring it to the surface, right? So you need to bring it to the surface, but the more we listen to ourselves, because most of our society has a negative mindset, right? 80% of your thoughts in a given day are negative. So if you have a negative mind, or not everybody, but generally speaking. So if you have a negative mindset and you're listening to that voice, all you're hearing is, I can't, I shouldn't, I won't do this, et cetera, et cetera. By simply flipping it, and I say simply, it's not it's simple, it's not easy, but by flipping it and talking to yourself and priming yourself and telling yourself the narrative you want, the reality is that the unconscious mind, for as intricate and powerful as it is, it's actually quite stupid. It just listens to whatever you tell it,
like
which
a sponge,
is the reason.
right?
It's the reason that people have been shaped over their lifetime with their parents and their friends and their family from a young age, because your unconscious mind just absorbs it. So the same is true the opposite way. If you just start talking to yourself more than you're listening to yourself in that voice, you're going to start to see those shifts. Now, the one thing I'll say there, because I like to speak out about this kind of stuff, is like, I think we have to be mindful example of like understanding cognitive dissonance, that, you know, if you have like this major insecurity, you can't stand looking yourself in the mirror because you think you're absolutely ugly. You know, this is like the basic example. Like I have a client who one time, like her therapist said, you know, I want you to stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm beautiful every day. Well, she stood in front of the mirror for a year crying at herself because the cognitive dissonance, so essentially the gap between the current belief and where she was going, was way too big. You have to kind of understand, like, is this resistance too big? Yeah. Or is this something that I can get behind and I can believe? So little baby steps, start talking to yourself more than you're listening to that voice, and watch how it'll shape the change in your reality.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that last part's important. It's a bit of common sense. Like, you want to start running, but don't go run a marathon tomorrow.
Exactly.
So, like, you know.
Exactly. And that's what everybody wants. You know,
Yeah.
I say this to people all the time, like, don't try to do a 180 on your life. You know, if you're not skilled, I'm unbelievably skilled at habit change, behavioral adaptation. I'm sure you can appreciate it as an athlete. So I'm like, I've been practicing that for years. I can do a 180 flip.
Yeah.
But if you don't have success in that, you know, start with one thing and then change the next and then change the next. And it's always the fastest way to get to where you're going.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, like, the best of the best in the world, like, they can do the 180s because they've just, like, for 20 years trained discipline.
Exactly.
And all that, but they're like machines, right? That's like why you can see Elon Musk take over Twitter, and you can see a pro athlete go from, I don't know, running to triathlon and become a champion there too, because those habits are just, but they're a rare 1 in a million sort of thing. So I agree. It's making those changes. And yeah, I guess, you know, if you're, because I see this too, if you're speaking to yourself or listening to your own thoughts a lot, maybe you start, I don't know what you think about this, but highlight the couple that come up a lot that are causing damage to yourself, right? So it's kind of like when I used to coach people in nutrition, it's like, you know, you got to clean up your whole diet, but look, the Ben and Jerry's every night, that's an easy fix, right? Just even go to Halo Top instead of Ben and Jerry's for now, because that's 700 calories, boom, gone. So I guess it's kind of the same in mindset. Like, if there's one thing you keep telling yourself that's ruining everything, is fix that
totally
first.
I always refer to it as usual suspects. We all have usual suspects. We all tend to have certain thought patterns we go to, whether it's relationship, whether it's business, whether it's money, whatever the case may be. Know what your usual suspects are and attack those first, because it's just too much to attack everything all at once.
Like that. And then the next part was, I liked the part at the end about reviewing the wins. So do you, like, you know, if you're coaching someone, what's a good, it sounds great, but it's like, do you recommend, like, hey, have a journal every night and write 5 things, tell your spouse 3 things, tell you, like, how do they physically do that?
So the simplicity of it, I always encourage people to do it in a journal.
The rhythm power.
There's a kinesthetic brain body connection.
Like writing your goals, they prove you're more likely.
100%.
Yeah.
So I do encourage, like, the simplest way I would say is keep a journal beside your bed. You go to bed every night, right? And because everybody has a hard time with habit integration, we have to understand that I'm talking about this process and it's glowing and it's amazing, but you still have to integrate it as a new habit and skill as well. So keep a journal by your bed every night. Start off with 3 to 5 wins, 3 to 5 things that you did in your day that were moving you forward. Now, here's the thing for me that is, like, so fascinating, because we live in this society where everybody's looking for the big, huge win, right? The $10 million company, or I won this, or I won that. But what nobody understands, except for people who've done all of that, is that it's all the little baby steps along the way, the mundane, the this and the, like, I'm, you know, no part of me ever wants to do cardio, but I do it twice a day, every day. So, like, it's the little steps. And so what I keep coming up against is I actually find a lot of people devalue the small wins as not big enough. And I'm like, you don't understand. So little wins, I would say, like, it's the little wins that lead to the aha life, you know? So 3 to 5 wins every day before you go to bed. I encourage doing it before you go to bed, because the unconscious mind is still processing as we're sleeping. And you have 2 choices. You're going to go to bed with a non-serving one or a serving one.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's why I tell people
that's great. And there's 2 follow-ups there. Like, I actually did an Instagram post yesterday about it's the boring stuff that equals the big results. And you look at every pro in life, pro sport, pro business, they just do all the boring stuff every day. And it's like, the problem with Instagram and social media and entrepreneurship is everyone wants to do the sexy stuff.
Right.
And yeah, all the big entrepreneurs post the private jets and the Bahamas and the yachts. But the 17 hours before they went on the yacht, they were working, you know.
Totally. 100%. I always say, and I won't swear on your podcast, but I always say, like, you know, people think that, like, like, everybody thinks, like, if it's not an F yes, it's an F no. And they start living their lives day by day, minute by minute, like that. But I always say to people, the process is never going to be a hell yes.
Yeah.
The vision has to be the hell yes, because the process is boring and mundane and annoying most of the time.
Especially in bodybuilding, like me, I'm doing triathlon and Ironman. It's a lot of boring cardio,
Oh yeah,
you know, like
100%. And nobody wants to do
Yeah.
cardio I mean, I'm competing in 5.5 weeks. I'm like, I don't want to do 60 minutes of cardio twice a day, but I'm playing for the long game. And you know, and that, I mean, speaks to vision. I think that that's a huge problem in our society. People lack vision. They have goals that aren't their own. Like they want to be $1 million company because someone else is $1 million. What is your vision? What matters to you? What lights your soul on fire? So I do a lot of work with my clients and the women that I work with on vision. If you've got no vision, you have no direction.
Well, and part of it is you got to want it enough too, because also when I did this post, someone said to me, yeah, but Rudy, isn't entrepreneurship and all that supposed to be like you do whatever's fun in life? And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like all day, every day's fun, you know? And it's like the bigger vision and goal is what inspires you. But there's a lot of like the boring, mundane to get through it. And what's funny is when most people realize that, like not people listening, because we're all entrepreneurs and unique here, but normal people, I think if they knew the reality, they'd probably go, oh no, I'm just gonna not do that now.
Exactly. You know? No, exactly. It's like most of my days, it's like wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
You know, but that's where, you know, I travel a great deal for business. And one of the things I'm so grateful for is my habits and my routines.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where I am, what time zone it is, every single day I wake up and I do the same thing every single day. And just the simplicity of that, like that's the one thing I always tell people, bookshelf your day. Start your day and end your day with the same thing. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing, but at least establish your day and your habits right there from the start.
Yeah, like it. So last couple of questions, we wrap up. You know, we talk all day about this, but they can learn more in the episode and all that sort of stuff.
Clearly, I can talk all day about it.
so what are they going to get from the episode, and what does legacy and like the long-term legacy mean for you?
Yeah, so from the episode, we're going to talk a lot about the Dentity Code and my brand and my mission for women to leave no woman behind. So we're going to go deep into that and the power of identity for women. And legacy for me is it's the simplicity is leaving the world a better place than when I was born. For me, when I was 4 years old, my grandfather asked me what I want to do when I grow up. And I was like, I want to change the world, Grandpa. And he was so cute. He was like, you go do that, Carrie. But for me, it's every single day waking up and striving to change as many lives as I possibly can. Yeah. And, you know, my big mission right now, you know, I've done a lot in my career. I'm very blessed to have a very, you know, thriving private practice. For me right now, it's all about, you know, really helping empower women with the tools and the strategies that I've used and that I practice and that I teach, so that they can really go and achieve what they want for themselves, happiness, success, and fulfillment. And my big thing in my legacy is that no woman gets left behind.
That's great. Well, guys, that's a wrap. We're out of time, but you can go find a whole bunch more if you enjoyed this conversation, obviously in the main episode, on social media and all of those great things. As always, keep changing lives, building a legacy, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.